Just over a year ago, I made a video about how I believed Cenk Uygur and his co-hosts at the Young Turks were sneaking around campaign finance laws in order to use the Young Turks Corporation to help his congressional campaign. I argued that the purpose of bringing Cenk on as a guest to his own show—
Welcome, Anna. Thank you.
I'm welcoming you.
That's right.
He's a guest on this show.
Was actually that they wanted to avoid making any illegal in-kind contributions to his campaign, which would not only have been against the law, but would have also cut against his commitment to not taking corporate money. Predictably, a number of TYT fans made their way to this video and accused me of doing frivolous legal research. Well, guess what? I was right.
Like, this is not like one of those cheesy, like, here with us now is congressional candidate for California's 25th district, Cenk Uygur. Thank you for joining us, Cenk.
Why? Are you saying we did that before?
Yeah, because we had to legally. But anyway.
Yeah.
Like I said at the end of that video, I usually wouldn't care about somebody doing this. I think that the majority of campaign finance laws are ill-conceived and should be thrown out. The real issue is that Cenk's main goal, whether you're talking about his career in news or his short-lived political career, is to get money out of politics, which is just another way of saying he wants to tighten campaign finance laws. He believes that it fundamentally corrupts our politics and that the free speech concerns associated with cracking down on campaign spending are erroneous. The fact that Cenk would preach these things and then cynically skirt around the existing laws when it came to his own campaign was my issue. And this is my big issue with the Young Turks. It's their hypocrisy. It's the same thing when Cenk resisted the unionization of his own company. Jimmy Dore accused Cenk of saying this about labor unions.
By the way, here's something else Cenk told me. So right after Donald Trump got elected and everybody was dejected, pretty much like we feel right now after the squad just abandoned us, we had finished a program, a show, and I turned to him and I said earnestly, Cenk, let's do something real. Let's do something meaningful. And he goes, like what? I go, let's organize all the Walmart workers in California. I go, if we can do it here, we could do it anywhere. We could change the country. Let's organize the workers. And Cenk looked me right in the eye and he said, Jimmy, I ain't into unions, buddy. That's a direct quote.
Of course, we can't verify that Cenk actually said that, but it's certainly believable given that he said similar things on other occasions.
Look, on card check, I don't. So this is one of the issues that I'm not that progressive on. I don't believe in card check.
I also don't care if he doesn't like labor unions in general. It's that he claims to be pro-union in other instances.
And then when the public unions, who I support 100%, were protesting, collective bargaining, which I agree with 100%, in Wisconsin, Obama said, oh man, if collective bargaining is ever on the line, I'm gonna put my walking shoes on and join the picket line. Nothing.
And then puts up resistance when it comes to his own work. Unions for thee, but not for me. It's like what former TYT employee Hank Thompson told the New Republic. We'd edit stories about workers' rights and unions and strikes, and the crime of low wages, and the little guy getting screwed, and the importance of standing up for yourself. So if anyone planted the seed, it was Cenk himself. Cenk and his company are globally recognized as pro-union, pro-worker, defender of the little guy, stander-upper to corporate power, fighters for truth, justice, honesty, fairness, and openness. This is, by and large, what inspires such loyalty and money from the member base. No one thought he would refuse. If you're plugged into the anti-TYT space, or if you watch this channel, you probably already knew this. But TYT's hypocrisy goes even deeper. Cenk loves to go on and on about how the mainstream media is corrupt because of its corporate advertisers.
When you take the money from the giant corporate advertisers, in a sense, you owe them something, right? That's why we don't do it at the Young Turks. So when we take money from you guys, we owe you what we promise, which is honest reporting and fighting for positive change in the world. And we're gonna fight like hell for it.
Unlike those evil corporate behemoths, TYT is funded by viewers like you. That's how you know Cenk, Anna, and everyone else are delivering you the real news that's important to the little guy, and will arm you with the real information you need, unlike the corporate media, which is constantly trying to trick you. The funny thing is, though, Cenk doesn't believe that big money is inherently corrupting. I've heard Cenk say that taking millionaire money is fine as long as you don't let it corrupt you. You don't need to take my word for it that he said that. Just look at his behavior. I'm sure you're all familiar with the $20 million investment from Democratic Party mega donor Jeffrey Katzenberg's private equity firm. You also probably know about the $4 million from Buddy Roemer's investment firm, Roemer, Robinson, Melville and Company. Jimmy Dore and others maintain that this fundamentally corrupted the Young Turks into abandoning their progressive ideals in favor of supporting the Democratic establishment.
Now, I know when they took that money from the Clinton donors, I was told by a TYT executive that we know we have to move towards the center. That's a quote.
Maybe that's true. I can't say for sure. What I want to do here is go over another source of big money connected to the Young Turks that nobody's talked about. Over the course of 2020, TYT raised over $2 million from their audience to help keep the company afloat. Not all of that money was from regular people of humble means, though. No, TYT got money from some wealthy patrons as well. For example, they got a $25,000 donation from Joe Sandberg.
And then you remember in the middle of the year, Joe Sandberg gave this huge amount that was a matching fund that made all the difference to push us forward. He's a great progressive.
You haven't heard of Joe Sandberg? Well, you should know that he's a California-based investor and entrepreneur worth millions of dollars. He was an early investor in Blue Apron, a meal service delivery I'm sure you've heard of. He's also the co-founder of a company you may not have heard of, Aspiration. Aspiration is a financial institution that prides itself on ethical banking. Their website says, there's a good chance your bank is using your money to fund oil projects that destroy the climate. Put your money where your values are. Join Aspiration today. That sounds very progressive. So progressive, in fact, that the Young Turks do advertisements for them. You see, Cenk & Company won't do ads for just anyone. They think that it's fundamentally corrupting. Once news organizations start running ads for different companies, they're inevitably going to be compromised. As Cenk told Forbes, potential advertisers are classified into 3 buckets, led by the no-go group that he said includes oil companies, for-profit colleges, and for-profit prisons. Most advertisers fall into a large middle group whose ads would be considered on a case-by-case basis. The third and most prized bucket would include companies that are providing products and services that are closely aligned with the Young Turks' progressive politics and values. The third bucket's the one I'm most interested in, Uyghur said. Now we're having a conversation that creates a win-win for our audience, for us, and for the advertiser. On Friday, this article was written back in June of 2019, the Young Turks will roll out a day-long series of events with one of those latter companies, the next-gen financial services company Aspiration. That's right, Aspiration is so progressive that even the self-proclaimed home of progressives will not only run ads for them. The Young Turks did a 4-hour special encouraging their audience to sign up accounts with the company.
And let's talk about why that's a sponsorship that matters. A lot of people, influencers online, they'll make a BS reasons for why they're working with certain products, but one of the core ethical missions of TYT is improving the world.
Yes.
And a lot of banks, unfortunately, for all that they do, in commercials and things like that to seem like they care about the world, the money they invest in often goes to military-industrial complex, dirty fuel and things like that. It's stuff that you would not personally invest in, but by leaving your money in those banks and financial institutions, you are. But with Aspiration, it's not like that. You're gonna be working towards cleaner and more renewable energy, socially conscious investments.
If you think Aspiration's promises are too good to be true, that's because they are. Remember the documentary The Planet of the Humans that came out just last year? The film was controversial to say the least, especially on the left. It's not that the movie was right-wing, though. The Planet of the Humans was directed by Jeff Gibbs, a veteran of the environmental movement and an all-around leftist. It was produced by the progressive filmmaker Michael Moore. It became controversial on the left because its primary target was the green movement itself. The film exposes the canard that is the current green energy infrastructure, showing that so-called renewable energy sources rely heavily on fossil fuels themselves, and that their production and operation is environmentally hazardous in its own right. Perhaps more controversially, the film argues that the green movement, including established organizations like the Sierra Club, the Natural Resources Defense Club, and 350, and including people like Bill McKibben and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., are essentially tools of existing industry. Large financial institutions and industrial companies, including ones that produce fossil fuels, essentially see the green movement as another means of furthering their pre-existing agenda, turning a profit. About an hour and 15 minutes into the film, another institution makes an appearance.
The Sierra Club also partners with a green fund called Aspiration. Aspiration also includes dozens of companies profiting from the destruction of the planet, including Chevron, ExxonMobil, Chesapeake Energy.
In order to maximize the production potential of the well, the shale formation will be hydraulically fractured.
The Russian gas giant Gazprom.
Gazprom owns the world's largest explored gas reserves, 36 trillion cubic meters.
And in perhaps the most bizarre twist of all, the Sierra Club's Green Fund's biggest holding is in Viva, the world's largest consumer of forests, to be incinerated in green energy biomass plants.
That fund doesn't exactly sound progressive, now does it? They don't exactly live up to their commitment of 100% clean money. Aspiration also offers a mutual fund called the Redwood Fund, which they advertise as sustainable investing, which is committed to multiple environmental, social, and governance factors to find companies whose management understands that smart, long-term thinking is not only the right thing to do, but right for the bottom line. The SEC filings on this mutual fund tell a different story. The mutual fund includes Reynolds Consumer Products, which produces aluminum foil and those red plastic cups that are incredibly wasteful. It also includes Royal Caribbean, a big player in the cruise line industry, an industry that is not only known for its poor environmental record, but also its unscrupulous labor practices. There's also Berkshire Hathaway, which has stake in many fossil fuel companies, including BNSF Railways, which will be shipping Canadian tar sands south by train in lieu of the Keystone Pipeline. There are other financial institutions like Visa and Ameriprise. There are also companies like Insight and United Healthcare, which are part of our evil for-profit healthcare system. And my favorite, it includes the media giant Disney, which, among other things, has consistently fought unionization among its workforce. Maybe this is a good fit after all.
You know, I want you guys to feel like if you're a supporter of TYT, it is synonymous to also be an Aspiration account holder.
Aspiration is engaged in what environmentalists call greenwashing. According to Wikipedia, greenwashing is a form of marketing spin in which PR, green values, are deceptively used to persuade the public that an organization's products, aims, and policies are environmentally friendly. Aspiration's status as an environmentally conscious financial institution is just a marketing gimmick. When it comes down to it, with the possible exception of financial institutions that launder money for terrorist organizations, Aspiration's money isn't any more clean than anyone else's. Their partnership with TYT is suspect enough. But things go a few layers deeper. When The Planet of the Humans came out, it was a big story here online. There was, of course, the controversial message and the big names attached to it. But the movie was also free to watch on YouTube, so anyone could view it at any time. Furthermore, the film was eventually taken down due to a copyright strike, which, as you all know, is a topic of interest here on YouTube. As online commentators will do, they seized on the opportunity to put their 2 cents in from every conceivable angle. You know who didn't think it was worth mentioning, though? The self-proclaimed home of progressives. There's only a single time this story came up on their channel. It was briefly brought up at the end of an interview. More on that in a minute. It's odd that they didn't think the movie was worth mentioning, given that they don't really shy away from stories about climate change. Like I said earlier, the film was taken down because of a copyright strike. The person who filed the copyright claim was the British environmentalist and photographer Toby Smith. The filmmakers used a few seconds from one of Smith's projects without his permission, but Smith stated publicly that he requested to get the film taken down simply because he didn't like it. Smith was not the only one who tried to get the movie off of YouTube, though. Josh Fox, the director of the anti-fracking film Gasland, emailed several colleagues in the Green Movement demanding that the film be removed from the internet. The email read, "This new Michael Moore movie is, to put this politely, a gigantic crock of shit. It is disgusting, unfactual, unscientific abomination. You must take it down. I am so serious. It is absolutely horrible. Beyond it being terribly made, amateurish, and inept, it has absolutely no factual basis. It encourages the most baseless kind of thinking. It also goes after heroes in our movement in gotcha-type interviews for absolutely no reason. It is terrible reporting, cherry-picking, ignorant. It is not only untrue, not factual in any way, it is incredibly deceptive. I cannot stress this enough. This film is as untruthful and deceitful as anything Donald Trump ever did. It must come down off your pages immediately." He also circulated a petition demanding an apology and retraction from the filmmakers, and wrote an article in The Nation slamming Michael Moore as a flack for oil and gas companies. Remember the one interview where they mentioned the film? That was Josh Fox Cenk was talking to. The one time the Young Turks mentioned The Planet of the Humans was when Cenk let Josh Fox bash it.
So I mentioned the Michael Moore movie, so I wanted to just touch on it for a minute. Planet of the Humans came out. It was deeply controversial, went after a lot of the leaders of the movement. So, and I know you've talked about it before and staying with Josh Fox, and you'll probably talk about it again. But real quick, what do you think was the core of the problem there? What did they do wrong?
This happened on The Conversation, TYT's interview show. Do you know who hosts the show on the TYT network that airs before The Conversation? Josh Fox. That's right. TYT programming kicks off every day with the show At Home with Josh Fox. So, just to recap, the Young Turks partnered with a greenwashing financial institution, refused to mention a film that was critical of that institution, and then someone from their network tried to get the film taken down. Do I know if their partnership with Aspiration is responsible for all of these things? No, I don't. Maybe it's all just a big coincidence. What I do know is that Cenk and everyone else at TYT are the first ones to resort to character assassination when it comes to other people and the way they react to politics. They insist that the mainstream media is corrupted by their advertisers. Why isn't this true for their business? They also claim that their former employees, people who were apparently good enough to be hired by them at one point, are grifters. Dave Rubin sold out to billionaires, apparently.
So Dave Rubin found an angle by being a conservative, pretending to be a progressive, and it worked for him. It worked brilliantly.
How come the Young Turks aren't sellouts to their wealthy patrons? They say that Jimmy Dore sold out to his audience.
And then Jimmy decided his angle was going to be the brave hero who yells the loudest and never makes any compromises, and accuses. But in order to do that grift, you then have to accuse everyone else of not being the brave hero. And so they're the sellouts.
Well, their audience just contributed $2 million to them. How is that not corrupting? Cenk had the audacity to say that they hired these people because they allow any perspective on their network.
Why have we had a couple of people here, or now several people here, who went on to lose their minds and do really shitty things? Okay, there's actually a good reason for it. It's because we don't believe in a spectrum of acceptable thought, right?
But they're the first ones to cry corruption when people disagree with them. Anna is despondent about accusations of selling out.
The people who used to work with us decide to turn around and grow their audience by attacking us. And then as they're collecting enough money to buy mansions in Los Angeles, they turn around and they accuse us of selling out.
But it's their very own logic at play here. They shouldn't be surprised when it gets turned on them. Either way, they are either compromised themselves or they're the biggest hypocrites in the world.